Welcome to the Wiz Books Podcast, your ultimate stop for exploring life-changing books and mastering English. Whether you're here to reshape your habits, gain new insights, or improve your language skills, we've got you covered. Dive in, learn, and get inspired. Today we're taking a deep dive into How to Be a Genius by John Woodward.
Oh, a great choice.
It's a fascinating guide to understanding and maximizing your brain power. And Woodward didn't go it alone. He had expert consultants like Dr. David Hardman and Phil Chambers on board, along with awesome illustrators like Serge Seidlitz and Andy Smith.
Having that team of specialists definitely adds weight to the information. It's like having a whole brain trust guiding us through the intricacies of our own minds.
Okay, let's unpack this. The book starts with a fact that just blows my mind.
Okay.
The human brain is the most complex structure on Earth. Think about it. It's more intricate than any supercomputer we've ever built.
It's truly mind-boggling when you consider all the functions our brains handle without us even realizing it. Actions, senses, emotions, memory, language, it's all happening up there all the time.
And here's the kicker. The book emphasizes that our brains are like muscles. The more we use them, the stronger they get. So this deep dive is all about understanding how to unlock that potential.
I like that.
One thing that really stuck with me was the idea of automatic activity. The book explains that even when we're asleep, our brains are busy controlling essential functions like our heartbeat and breathing. It's like a 247 operation up there.
It really underscores how vital our brains are, constantly working to keep us alive and functioning even when we're not consciously aware of it. Speaking of putting our brains to work, I loved the Do You Remember section on page 7. There's this vibrant illustration of a boy's head, but it's filled with images that represent his thoughts, memories, and emotions.
Right. It's such a cool visual representation of how much our brains are constantly processing.
And then the book.
And then the book hits you with these memory challenge questions based on the illustration.
Yeah.
Like, where does he like to sing?
Mm.
Or name 3 sports that we see the boy doing. I actually found myself flipping back and forth trying to remember all the details.
It's a sneaky way to get us actively using our observation and recall skills. And it ties in perfectly with the book's emphasis on actively engaging with information for better retention.
Now, here's where things get really interesting. Chapter 2 dives into the whole left brain versus right brain concept. You know, the idea that the 2 hemispheres of our brains have specialized functions.
It's a concept that's often oversimplified, but there's definitely some truth to the idea that different parts of our brains have strengths in specific areas.
So the book says the left brain is typically the logical, analytical side. It's all about language, math, and critical thinking. If you're crunching numbers or writing a report, that's your left brain in action.
While the right brain is more associated with creativity, intuition, and spatial awareness, it's the side that excels in artistic expression, music, and those aha moments of insight.
But here's the thing. The book stresses that most activities use both sides of the brain. It's not a strict division, but more about which side might be dominant for a particular task.
Exactly. The 2 hemispheres are constantly communicating and working together. To help you explore which side you might lean towards, the book has these taking sides tests.
Oh yeah, those are fun. Like kicking a soccer ball to figure out your dominant foot, or the classic Donna circle test for hand dominance. They even have an index finger and eye test to find your dominant eye.
It's fascinating how those preferences show up in subtle ways throughout our bodies. And speaking of 2 sides working together, the book also mentions ambidexterity, being able to use both hands equally well.
Right. Imagine the advantage in sports like baseball or tennis if you could switch hit or play with either hand.
It speaks to the adaptability and potential of the brain to develop skills that might seem unusual or even impossible at first.
All right, moving on to chapter 3, which is all about the power of sight. Makes sense, right? The book points out that sight is our dominant sense. We rely on it so much for how we learn and remember things.
Absolutely. A significant portion of the brain is dedicated to processing visual information. It's not just about seeing, it's about interpreting and understanding the world around us.
And that's where optical illusions come in.
Oh, yeah.
The book explains how our brains can be tricked by what we see. Like that example on page 29 about desert mirages. We see what looks like water, but it's actually just a distorted reflection of the sky caused by hot air.
It's a perfect example of how our brains try to make sense of what we see based on our past experiences. We associate shimmering reflections with water, so our brains fill in the gaps, even when it's not accurate.
It's like our brains are playing tricks on us. The book also has this cool exercise called Trick Your Brain on page 26, where you draw a face upside down. Apparently, doing it this way actually helps you draw it more accurately.
The theory is that when we draw a face right side up, our left brain tries to impose its preconceived notions of what facial features should look like, leading to a less accurate representation.
So by flipping it upside down, we engage the right brain's spatial and visual processing skills, allowing us to see the shapes and proportions more objectively.
Precisely. It's a clever way to bypass our left brain's tendency to categorize and stereotype, forcing us to engage with the image in a more detailed and nuanced way.
Okay, on to chapter 4, which takes us into the world of sound. Here's a fact that might surprise you. Sound doesn't travel in space.
That's right. Sound waves need a medium to travel through, like air or water. Without those molecules to vibrate, there's no sound. It's a completely silent world out there.
Whoa, that's kind of eerie to think about.
Huh.
To help us understand how sound works here on Earth, the book has a fun, noisy bottles activity on page 36.
Oh, I remember that one.
It's a hands-on experiment that demonstrates how the pitch of a sound changes depending on the amount of air or water in a bottle.
You fill.
You fill bottles with varying levels of water and then either blow across the top or tap them to create different sounds.
And as you adjust the amount of air or water, you change the speed of the vibrations, resulting in higher or lower pitches. It's a simple but effective way to illustrate the principles of sound production.
Speaking of sound, and specifically music, the book has this fascinating section about Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. The guy was composing music by the age of 5 and touring Europe as a child prodigy.
Mozart is often cited as an example of someone with extraordinary innate talent. His ability to improvise complex musical pieces, even as a child, was truly remarkable.
And the book talks about how he could just sit down at the piano and create these beautiful, intricate melodies on the spot, often leaving experienced musicians in awe.
It suggests a level of mastery that goes beyond technical skill, hinting at a deep, intuitive understanding of musical structure and harmony. It raises fascinating questions about the nature of genius and the interplay of talent, practice, and perhaps even something more.
But what I also found interesting is that the book doesn't shy away from Mozart's personality quirks. He was apparently a bit of a character, with a love of fashion, a passion for billiards, and a knack for practical jokes.
It reminds us that even individuals we consider geniuses are complex human beings with a range of interests and personality traits. It humanizes them and makes their accomplishments even more remarkable, showing that genius can flourish alongside a vibrant and multifaceted personality.
All right, let's move on to chapter 5, which focuses on taste, smell, and supersenses. This chapter is all about how these senses are interconnected and how they influence our experience of the world.
It's fascinating how taste and smell work together to create our perception of flavor, and how these senses can evoke powerful memories and emotions.
Totally. And speaking of powerful senses, the book has a couple of sensitive senses activities that I just have to share. The first one, called a blocked nose on page 42, is a blindfolded taste test.
Ah, yeah, I remember that.
It's a classic experiment that demonstrates how much of what we perceive as taste actually comes from our sense of smell.
You try to identify.
You try to identify different foods with and without holding your nose closed.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much the flavors change when you can't smell them.
Right. Suddenly, that apple might taste bland and indistinguishable from a pear.
The second activity, simply called Smell on page 43, challenges you to match different scents.
Will you gather?
You gather various items like coffee grounds, spices, or soap, and try to match them up based on their smell alone. It's a fun way to explore the nuances of our sense of smell and to appreciate its incredible sensitivity.
It is.
And to wrap up this chapter, the book highlights the fascinating world of people with super sensitive senses, like tea tasters, who can distinguish between subtle flavors and aromas that most of us would never even notice.
It's a reminder that our senses are not fixed, but can be developed and refined through practice and experience. These individuals have honed their sensory perception to an expert level, opening up a world of subtle nuances that most of us are oblivious to.
Okay, moving on to chapter 6, which explores the amazing sense of touch. It's easy to take touch for granted, but the book reminds us that our skin is actually our largest organ.
It's not just a protective barrier, it's a complex sensory organ that provides us with a wealth of information about our environment.
And it does this through a variety of sensory receptors. The book explains how different receptors respond to touch, pressure, temperature, and pain, allowing us to experience a wide range of tactile sensations.
Yeah, it's a reminder of how intricately our bodies are designed to interact with the world around us. And speaking of intricate design, The book mentions this cool fact called fingertip control on page 44.
Okay.
Our fingertips are packed with sensory receptors, making them incredibly sensitive.
Which is why we can do things like thread a needle or read Braille, relying solely on those tiny little sensors to gather information.
It's like having miniature antennas at our fingertips, constantly sending detailed information to our brains.
Of course, this chapter wouldn't be complete without some hands-on activities. The touch and tell activity on page 47 involves testing touch sensitivity on different body parts using a paperclip. You'll be surprised how much variation there is.
It's a simple but effective way to demonstrate that the density of touch receptors varies across the body, explaining why some areas are more sensitive than others. And then there's the hot or cold activity, also on page 47, which explores how our thermal receptors adapt to temperature changes.
This one involves placing your fingers in hot and cold water and then into lukewarm water. The finger that was in cold water will perceive the lukewarm water as hot, while the finger that was in hot water will perceive it as cold.
Right.
It's trippy how our perception of temperature is relative to our previous experience.
It's another example of how our brains constantly adjust and adapt based on the information they receive.
Okay, let's shift gears to a topic that's often associated with genius: creativity. Chapter 7, Unlocking Creativity, kicks off with a prime example: Leonardo da Vinci.
Leonardo da Vinci is often considered the epitome of the Renaissance man, excelling in a vast array of disciplines, from painting and sculpture to engineering and anatomy.
The book highlights his incredibly wide-ranging interests. I mean, the guy was designing helicopters centuries before they were actually invented. He was fascinated by anatomy, water power, flying machines, you name it.
It speaks to his boundless curiosity and his ability to connect ideas from seemingly disparate fields.
Then what I found most inspiring is the book's emphasis on observation and questioning as key elements of Leonardo's creative process. He was constantly observing the world around him, asking why and how, and seeking to understand the underlying principles of nature.
It reinforces the idea that a curious mind and a thirst for knowledge are essential ingredients for unlocking creative potential.
Now, Chapter 8 gets practical, offering tips on boosting your creativity. The book introduces several techniques, including brainstorming.
Brainstorming is all about generating a flood of ideas without judgment or self-censorship, often in a collaborative setting. It's about letting go of limitations and allowing your mind to explore all possibilities.
Then there's lateral thinking, which is about approaching problems from unexpected angles to break free from fixed ideas.
It's about challenging assumptions and looking for solutions in unconventional places. Instead of following the well-trodden path, you're forging your own trail, exploring new perspectives, and coming up with innovative solutions.
And finally, there's working backward, which is starting with the desired outcome and figuring out the steps needed to get there.
It's a great technique for problem solving and goal setting. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the complexity of a task, you break it down into smaller, more manageable steps, creating a roadmap for success.
Okay, ready for some creative challenges? The book throws down the gauntlet with some prompts for creative exercises.
These exercises encourage you to put the techniques into practice and to stretch your creative muscles. They're designed to spark your imagination and to get you thinking outside the box.
One of my favorites is the what-if scenarios, where you imagine the consequences of unusual situations, like what if we didn't sleep, or what if animals could talk?
It's a fun way to engage your imagination and to explore the ripple effects of hypothetical situations, and it encourages you to think beyond the limitations of the present and to consider alternative possibilities.
Another fun one is the unusual crossing challenge, where you have to come up with as many ways as possible to cross a lake. This one really forces you to think outside the box and to embrace unconventional solutions.
It's a reminder that there are often multiple solutions to a problem and that the most obvious approach isn't always the best.
And finally, there's a creative play suggestion, where you plan a treasure hunt with cryptic clues. It's a great way to combine creativity with a sense of fun and adventure.
And it encourages you to engage both your mind and your body in the creative process, making it a more holistic and engaging experience.
Okay, on to Chapter 9, which delves into the world of language. The book emphasizes how language is fundamental to learning, sharing complex ideas, and shaping our understanding of the world.
It's through language that we're able to communicate our thoughts, feelings, and experiences, to build relationships, and to create shared meaning.
The book then introduces us to Noam Chomsky, a renowned linguist who believed in the innate human capacity for language.
Chomsky's theories revolutionized our understanding of how language is acquired and processed. He argued that children are born with an inherent blueprint for grammar, allowing them to learn language rapidly and effortlessly, even without explicit instruction.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think that we might be wired for language from birth. And the book doesn't just talk about the theory of language, it also includes some fun language-based activities.
These activities are designed to engage our language processing skills and to challenge our understanding of vocabulary and grammar.
Like the quick comparisons word game on page 114, where you complete sentences by choosing words based on their relationship to other words. It's like a mental workout for your vocabulary.
And it reinforces the importance of precision in language, demonstrating how a single word can change the meaning of an entire sentence. The book also touches on the complexities of body language, reminding us that communication is not just about words, but also about nonverbal cues.
Right. Facial expressions, gestures, and body posture can convey a wealth of information, often subconsciously. And understanding these cues is essential for effective communication, especially in intercultural settings.
It's a reminder to be mindful of both our verbal and nonverbal communication, to be attentive to the subtle cues that others are sending, and to be aware of how our own body language might be interpreted.
All right, on to Chapter 10, which explores memory, the foundation of learning. The book explains how our brains process experiences and store information in memory, allowing us to learn from the past, adapt to new situations, and build upon our knowledge.
It delves into the different stages of memory, from the fleeting sensory impressions that last for just a few seconds, to the short-term working memory that holds information we're actively using, and finally to the long-term memory that stores information for extended periods.
But the book emphasizes that our brains don't just passively record everything we experience.
No.
There's a process of selection and consolidation where only the most meaningful or relevant information makes it into long-term storage.
It's a remarkably efficient system that prevents our brains from becoming overwhelmed with unnecessary information.
And to help us improve our memory skills, the book includes a variety of memory games and techniques. There's the Do You Remember section on pages 66 and 67, which focuses on visual and short-term memory challenges.
These games are not only fun, but also provide valuable practice in paying attention to details, remembering sequences, and recalling visual information.
And then there's the TRIP method on page 65, which is a mnemonic device for memorizing lists by associating items with landmarks on a familiar route.
It leverages our spatial memory, which is often stronger than our ability to recall abstract information. By creating a mental map of the information, we can make it more memorable and easier to retrieve.
Okay, moving on to Chapter 11, which tackles the fascinating world of habits. The book starts by explaining how habits are formed through repetition, literally shaping our brains by creating neural pathways that make certain behaviors automatic.
It's a powerful concept that highlights the neuroplasticity of the brain, its ability to adapt and change based on our experiences and repeated actions. Our habits are like well-worn grooves in our neural pathways, making it easier to fall back into familiar patterns of behavior, even when we consciously want to change.
The book emphasizes the positive impact of good habits, pointing out that they can free up our mental energy for more complex tasks and decision-making. It's like putting certain behaviors on autopilot, allowing us to focus on other things.
Absolutely. They can help us stay organized, improve our productivity, and even reduce stress by automating certain tasks. But as we know, bad habits can be hard to break.
The book doesn't sugarcoat that. It acknowledges the struggle we all face when trying to change ingrained behaviors.
Just like those.
It's like those neural pathways have become superhighways in our brains, and it takes conscious effort to create new, healthier routes for our thoughts and actions to follow.
Exactly. But the good news is our brains are adaptable.
But the book does offer some practical advice.
The book suggests that replacing a bad habit with a good one can be an effective strategy.
Right.
Instead of trying to completely eliminate a behavior, you're essentially redirecting those neural pathways toward a more positive outcome.
It's like hacking your own brain's reward system. And speaking of breaking habits, the book also delves into the darker side, addiction.
Addiction, whether to substances like drugs or alcohol, or to behaviors like gambling or excessive internet use, highlights the powerful role that dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward, plays in shaping our behavior.
It's like our brains get hooked on the dopamine rush, making it incredibly difficult to break free from the cycle of craving and reward. And it's a reminder that addiction is a complex issue that often requires professional help and support. Now let's step outside the human realm for a moment and explore animal intelligence in Chapter 12. The book challenges the notion that intelligence is a uniquely human trait, reminding us that other species exhibit remarkable problem-solving and learning abilities.
It encourages a broader perspective on intelligence, recognizing that animals have evolved diverse cognitive skills to adapt to their environments and to survive.
And to showcase this diversity, the book has a fun section called Train Your Pet, which gives examples of how to teach animals new tricks using positive reinforcement techniques.
These examples, from teaching a hamster to stand on command to training a dog to yawn on cue, demonstrate the adaptability of animals to learn new behaviors, highlighting the intelligence and potential that exists within the animal kingdom.
And it's a reminder that we share this planet with a multitude of intelligent beings, each with its own unique way of experiencing the world.
It's a call to respect and appreciate the diversity of life and to recognize that intelligence takes many forms.
All right, get ready for a reality check. Chapter 13 explores the limits of logic. This chapter reminds us that despite our best intentions, we don't always think logically.
It's a humbling realization, isn't it?
The book delves into the fascinating and often frustrating ways in which our emotions, biases, and ingrained patterns of thought can influence our decision-making, even when we believe we're being perfectly rational.
Right.
It's like our brains have these built-in shortcuts that can sometimes lead to faulty reasoning or irrational conclusions. For instance, the book discusses phobias, those intense irrational fears that can be triggered by anything from spiders to heights to enclosed spaces.
Phobias highlight how powerful our emotional responses can be, sometimes overriding our rational thinking and leading to behaviors that seem illogical from an outside perspective.
And then there are superstitions, those beliefs without a logical basis that can lead to all sorts of quirky behaviors, like knocking on wood for good luck or avoiding black cats.
Superstitions often stem from a desire to control the uncontrollable, providing a sense of order and predictability in a world that can feel chaotic and uncertain.
It's like we're trying to impose patterns on random events, seeking to find meaning and control in a world that often feels unpredictable.
The book even touches on the role of luck, how we often attribute events to chance rather than probability, like winning the lottery or narrowly avoiding an accident.
It's as if our brains crave those explanations, even if they defy logic or statistical probability. We want to believe that there's some rhyme or reason to the seemingly random events in our lives.
And that desire for meaning often leads us to embrace explanations that offer comfort or a sense of control, even if those explanations are not entirely rational.
Okay, brace yourself. Chapter 14 is where the real mental workout begins. This chapter is called Brain Power Puzzles, and it's filled with brain teasers and challenges that will put our logic, spatial reasoning, and problem-solving skills to the test.
It's a fun and engaging way to exercise our cognitive muscles, and as the book emphasizes, the process of engaging with these puzzles, of grappling with the challenge and exploring different approaches, is where the real learning and growth occur.
So let's dive in and see if we can crack some of these mental codes. First up is the carnival money riddle on page 90. It's a classic logic problem that often tricks people into performing incorrect calculations.
It highlights how easily our brains can be misled by seemingly straightforward information.
The riddle goes like this. 3 boys arrive at a carnival and pay $10 each for a total of $30. But the ticket booth attendant realizes the price is lower on Sundays and asks his assistant to give the boys $5 back. The assistant pockets $2 and gives the boys $1 each.
So far, so good.
So far, so good, right? But here's where the trick comes in. The riddle then asks, the boys have effectively paid $27 in total, $9 each, and the assistant kept $2, making a total of $29. Where did the missing dollar go?
It's a clever manipulation of the numbers that plays on our tendency to add and subtract without considering the context. The missing dollar is an illusion created by the misleading way the information is presented. The real calculation is much simpler. The boys paid $25 for the tickets, the correct price, and the assistant pocketed $2, totaling the original $27.
It's a great reminder to pay close attention to the details and to avoid jumping to conclusions based on initial impressions. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the correct one.
Next up is the frustrated farmer riddle on page 90, which tests our problem-solving skills and requires strategic thinking. The riddle presents a farmer who needs to transport a fox, a chicken, and a bag of grain across a river, but he can only carry one item at a time.
Sounds simple enough, right? But here's the catch. He can't leave the fox alone with the chicken. The fox will eat the chicken. And he can't leave the chicken alone with the grain. The chicken will eat the grain.
It's a classic constraint satisfaction problem where we have to figure out a sequence of actions that satisfies all the given conditions. It requires us to think several steps ahead, anticipating the consequences of each move.
It's a fun little puzzle that forces you to break down the problem into smaller, more manageable steps, analyzing the constraints and identifying a viable solution.
Now, let's engage our visual cortex with the Find the Treat puzzle on page 91. This one challenges our spatial reasoning and our ability to visualize objects from different perspectives.
There are 3 jars, and we're given clues about the contents of each jar, but only from one angle. We have to mentally rotate the jars in our minds to figure out what the contents would look like from a different viewpoint.
It's a great exercise for developing spatial awareness and improving our ability to manipulate objects in our minds.
Okay, back to some logic puzzles. The two-at-a-time riddle on page 91 presents a logistical challenge that involves getting a group of people across a river using a small boat that can only carry 2 people at a time.
The riddle involves 2 brothers, their father and their grandfather.
Okay?
Each person takes a different amount of time to row across the river, and they only have 17 minutes to spare before they miss their train.
Talk about time pressure. This riddle requires us to optimize a sequence of actions, considering the varying rowing speeds and the boat's capacity to find the most efficient way to get everyone across.
It's a great exercise for developing strategic thinking and problem-solving skills, especially when faced with time constraints.
Now for a puzzle that's straight out of an escape room. The right door riddle on page 91. It involves a prisoner who's presented with 2 doors. One leads to freedom, the other to a lion that will devour him.
He's allowed to ask one question to one of the 2 guards, but there's a catch.
Yeah.
One guard always lies, and the other always tells the truth.
How do you figure out who's lying and who's telling the truth when both guards could potentially deceive you? It's a mind-bending challenge that requires us to think critically about truth and deception.
The solution involves asking a question that will yield a truthful answer regardless of which guard you ask. The book provides the clever solution, which involves asking a question about what the other guard would say.
It's like using reverse psychology to outsmart the liars. This riddle highlights the power of logic and deduction in navigating tricky situations, especially when faced with unreliable information.
Next up, we have a visual pattern recognition challenge, the All Alone puzzle on page 80. It requires us to carefully scan an array of images and identify the one that doesn't have a matching pair.
It's like a visual game of hide and seek. We have to quickly process and retain visual information, looking for subtle differences among the images.
This puzzle engages our visual perception and memory, honing our ability to quickly identify patterns and anomalies.
Okay, ready to stretch our spatial skills. The 5 and 4 puzzle on page 101 challenges us to rearrange 5 squares made out of shovels into 4 squares, but we can only move 2 shovels.
This one requires us to think outside the box, visualizing the spatial relationships between the shovels and imagining how they can be repositioned to create a new configuration.
It's a fun challenge that forces you to break free from conventional thinking and to experiment with different arrangements.
Next, we have a number pyramid puzzle on page 96. This puzzle involves using logic and mathematical reasoning to fill in missing numbers in a pyramid structure.
Each row in the pyramid is related to the row above it by a specific mathematical rule.
Yeah.
We have to figure out the rule and use it to complete the pyramid. It's a great exercise for developing deductive reasoning and pattern recognition skills.
And for those who enjoy a bit of deception, we have the weighing game on page 97. This puzzle challenges us to use logic and deduction to determine the relative weights of different objects.
We're given clues about how different combinations of fruits balance each other on a scale, and we have to use those clues to figure out which fruits are heavier or lighter. It's like a mental game of weighing the evidence and arriving at a logical conclusion.
Next, the book presents the Only One Chance puzzle on page 97. This one requires us to use the numbers 1 through 6, each only once, to make a mathematical equation work. It's a test of our arithmetic skills and our ability to think strategically about number placement.
It's like a mini Sudoku puzzle where we have to find the right combination of numbers to make the equation balance.
And then we have the visually engaging Dazzling Stars puzzle on page 97. This one requires us to decode a visual representation of a mathematical problem where each colored star represents a different number.
We have to figure out which star corresponds to each number to solve the addition problem. It's a fun way to engage with math in a more visual and intuitive way.
Now for a bit of math and magic, we have the domino divining trick on page 98. This one challenges us to use subtraction skills to reveal a hidden domino. It's a fun way to impress your friends with your math skills.
And last but not least, there's All in a Row on page 99. This trick combines multiplication with numerical magic, using the number 9 and a calculator to create a series of repeating digits.
It's a fun way to explore the unique properties of the number 9 and to showcase the surprising patterns that can emerge from simple mathematical operations.
As you can see, this chapter is a treasure trove of brain-bending challenges. And it's a great reminder that exercising our cognitive muscles can be both challenging and fun.
Absolutely. It's like a mental playground where we can explore the limits of our thinking and develop valuable skills that can be applied to various aspects of our lives. Now, let's delve into a chapter that explores the very essence of who we are, your brain and you.
This chapter takes a deep dive into the complex relationship between our brains, our sense of identity, and our interactions with the world around us. It starts by acknowledging that we all have a sense of self, an inner me, that defines our individuality and shapes our experiences. But as the book points out, this concept of self might be more of an illusion than a concrete reality.
It's a thought-provoking concept that challenges our assumptions about the nature of identity and the relationship between our minds and our bodies. The book explains that there isn't a single part of the brain that's responsible for consciousness or our sense of self. Instead, it seems to emerge from the complex interactions of various brain regions.
It's like our sense of self is a symphony orchestrated by different parts of the brain, working together to create a cohesive experience of who we are.
The book also touches on the concept of self-esteem, which is essentially how we feel about ourselves, our sense of worthiness and value.
Right, it's that inner voice that can either lift us up or hold us back, influencing our confidence, our relationships, and our overall well-being.
The book emphasizes that developing a healthy self-esteem is crucial for navigating the challenges of life and for achieving our full potential.
It's about recognizing our strengths, accepting our imperfections, and believing in our ability to learn, grow, and make a positive impact on the world.
The book also delves into personality types, exploring the diverse ways in which our individual differences shape our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. It's not about fitting into neat categories, but rather about understanding the unique blend of traits that makes each of us who we are.
And it's fascinating to consider how those personality.
Traits influence our interactions with others, our career choices, and even our creative expressions.
It's a reminder that diversity is what makes the human experience so rich and fascinating.
Okay, get ready to explore the hidden depths of the mind.
Yeah.
Chapter 17, titled The Unconscious, delves into those mental processes that operate below the level of conscious awareness.
It's a fascinating realm where our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors can be influenced by factors we're not even aware of.
It's like a
Right. It's like there's this whole other world operating beneath the surface of our conscious minds, shaping our perceptions and actions in ways that we might not fully understand.
The book explains that our unconscious minds are constantly processing information, filtering and categorizing experiences, and forming associations that can influence our responses to situations.
It's as if our brains are working on autopilot, making snap judgments and decisions based on patterns and experiences we might not even be consciously aware of.
And while this can be efficient, allowing us to navigate the world without having to consciously think about every little thing, it can also lead to biases and prejudices that we might not even realize we hold.
Right, like making assumptions about people based on their appearance or social group, even if we consciously believe in equality and fairness.
It's a reminder that we're all susceptible to unconscious biases, and that it takes conscious effort to recognize and challenge those biases to promote fairness and understanding.
The book also discusses how advertisers can sometimes exploit our unconscious biases, using subtle cues and associations to influence our purchasing decisions.
It's about creating an emotional connection that bypasses our rational thinking, leading us to make choices based on impulse rather than logic. It highlights the importance of media literacy and critical thinking.
We need to be aware of the subtle ways in which we're being influenced by marketing messages, and to make conscious decisions based on our own values and needs rather than on cleverly crafted marketing tactics.
The book emphasizes that we're not helpless victims of our unconscious minds. With awareness and effort, we can gain greater control over our thoughts and actions.
It's about cultivating self-awareness, paying attention to our emotional responses, and questioning our assumptions to gain a deeper understanding of what's driving our behavior.
And it's about developing emotional intelligence, which is the ability to understand and manage our emotions effectively.
Right. Emotional intelligence is a valuable skill for navigating social situations, building strong relationships, and making sound decisions, even under pressure.
It's about being attuned to our own emotions and the emotions of others, allowing us to respond with empathy, understanding, and compassion.
Okay, let's explore a chapter that challenges the traditional view of intelligence, multiple intelligences. This chapter introduces Howard Gardner's theory, which proposes that intelligence is not a single measurable entity, but rather a collection of distinct abilities.
Gardner argued that traditional IQ tests, which primarily focus on linguistic and logical mathematical skills, fail to capture the full spectrum of human intelligence.
His theory expanded our understanding of intelligence to include areas like musical intelligence, spatial intelligence, bodily kinesthetic intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, and intrapersonal intelligence.
It's a much more holistic and inclusive view of intelligence, recognizing that we all have different strengths and talents. It's not about being smart in a traditional sense, but rather about recognizing and nurturing the unique blend of abilities that makes each of us who we are.
And this chapter delves into each of these intelligences, providing examples and anecdotes that illustrate their diverse characteristics. It's fascinating to consider how these different intelligences manifest in various fields and professions.
For example, a musician might possess exceptional musical intelligence, while an architect might excel in spatial intelligence.
And a dancer or athlete might demonstrate remarkable bodily kinesthetic intelligence. It's a reminder that intelligence is not a one-size-fits-all concept. We all have our own unique cognitive profiles, and it's about recognizing and leveraging our strengths to achieve our full potential.
It's a celebration of diversity, recognizing that each person's unique set of intelligences enriches society as a whole.
Okay, let's drift off into the mysterious world of dreams with Chapter 20, aptly titled Sweet Dreams. This chapter explores the science of sleep, the different stages we cycle through, and the physiological changes that occur as we slumber.
It's fascinating to consider that even when we're asleep, our brains are hard at work, processing experiences, consolidating memories, and perhaps even engaging in creative problem solving.
The book delves into the symbolism and meaning of dreams, exploring different theories about why we dream and what our dreams might be trying to tell us.
One prominent theory, proposed by Sigmund Freud, suggests that dreams are a window into our unconscious minds, revealing hidden desires, fears, and conflicts that we might not be aware of in our waking lives.
It's like our dreams are using a symbolic language to communicate with our conscious minds, offering glimpses into the depths of our psyche.
And while dream interpretation can be complex and subjective, paying attention to the recurring themes, symbols, and emotions that appear in our dreams can potentially provide valuable insights into our inner world.
The book also touches on the fascinating phenomenon of lucid dreaming, which is essentially becoming aware that you're dreaming while you're dreaming. It's like stepping into a virtual reality world created by your own mind.
Lucid dreaming offers the potential to consciously participate in and even control our dreams, opening up possibilities for exploration, creativity, and even personal growth.
Now, let's face our fears head-on with Chapter 21, Conquering Fear. This chapter explores the nature of fear, its evolutionary roots, and its physiological effects on the body.
It reminds us that fear is a natural human emotion, a survival mechanism that has played a vital role in our evolution. Our ancestors faced real threats, like predators and natural disasters, and fear helped them survive by triggering the fight-or-flight response.
Right, but as the book points out, in modern times, many of our fears are not based on actual threats, but rather on anxieties, worries, and perceived dangers that might never materialize.
It's important to distinguish between rational fears, which serve a protective purpose, and irrational fears, which can hold us back from pursuing our goals and living fulfilling lives.
The book then dives into strategies for managing and overcoming fear. It emphasizes the importance of understanding our fears, challenging our negative thoughts, and gradually exposing ourselves to the things we fear in a safe and controlled environment.
It's about facing our fears head-on, desensitizing ourselves to the things that trigger our anxiety, and building confidence in our ability to cope.
And it's about recognizing that seeking professional help, such as therapy or counseling, can be invaluable for addressing deep-seated fears or anxieties that might be interfering with our well-being.
It's a reminder that we don't have to face our fears alone, and that seeking support can provide us with valuable tools and strategies for overcoming these challenges. Now, let's shift our focus to the incredible capabilities of the human body in the chapter titled Amazing Bodies.
This chapter is a celebration of our physical forms. It dives into the intricate systems that keep us alive and functioning, exploring how our organs, muscles, bones, and nervous system work together in this incredibly complex and harmonious way.
It's mind-boggling to think about everything that's happening within our bodies at any given moment. Our hearts are beating, our lungs are breathing, our digestive systems are breaking down food, our immune systems are fighting off invaders, all without us having to consciously direct any of it.
Right, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It's like our bodies are these finely tuned machines, constantly working to keep us in balance. The book then takes us into the world of sports, showcasing the incredible feats of athleticism that humans can achieve.
From the raw power of a weightlifter to the graceful agility of a gymnast, the human body is capable of extraordinary things. And it's not just about physical strength or speed, it's also about the mental focus, discipline, and determination that athletes bring to their training and competitions.
Absolutely, that mental aspect is so important. And speaking of the mind-body connection, the next chapter, The Power of Thought, explores the fascinating link between our thoughts, our emotions, and our physical well-being.
This chapter delves into the concept of the mind-body connection, exploring how our thoughts and beliefs can influence our physical health. It's a two-way street. Stress, anxiety, and negative thoughts can trigger physiological changes that can weaken our immune systems and make us more susceptible to illness.
It's like our bodies are responding to our mental state, for better or worse. And on the flip side, positive thoughts, optimism, and a sense of purpose can actually have a beneficial impact on our health, boosting our immune systems and increasing our resilience.
It's a reminder that nurturing a positive mindset is not just about feeling good. It can also contribute to our overall physical health and well-being. The book then shifts gears to explore the complexities of human relationships in the chapter titled Thinking About Others.
This chapter delves into the social and emotional dynamics that shape our interactions with others, from family and friends to romantic partners. It highlights the essential role of communication in building strong and healthy relationships.
Effective communication involves not only expressing our thoughts and feelings clearly, but also actively listening to others, seeking to understand their perspectives, and working collaboratively to resolve conflicts. And it's not just about the words we use, it's also about our tone of voice, body language, and facial expressions, all those nonverbal cues that can convey so much meaning.
It's like there's a whole other language we speak without even realizing it. The book emphasizes that healthy relationships require empathy, which is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. It's about putting ourselves in their shoes, seeing the world from their perspective, and responding with compassion and understanding.
Empathy is crucial for building trust, resolving conflicts, and fostering a sense of connection and belonging. It allows us to navigate the complexities of human interaction with greater sensitivity and awareness.
And finally, the book takes a look at the future in the chapter titled The Intelligent Future. This chapter explores the rapidly evolving world of artificial intelligence and its potential impact on our lives.
It's a fascinating and rapidly changing field. The book traces the history of AI from the early attempts to create machines that could think and learn to the remarkable advancements in recent decades.
And it explores the ways in which AI is already being used in various fields, from self-driving cars and facial recognition software to medical diagnosis and personalized learning platforms. It's incredible to think about the potential of AI to solve complex problems and to improve our lives in countless ways.
Absolutely. But the book also raises important ethical considerations. As we create increasingly sophisticated machines, we need to think carefully about the potential consequences, ensuring that AI is developed and used responsibly and ethically.
Right. We need to consider the potential impact on employment, privacy, and even the nature of human connection as AI becomes more integrated into our lives.
It's a call for thoughtful discussion and collaboration as we navigate the challenges and opportunities of this rapidly evolving technological landscape.
Well, as we wrap up our deep dive into how to be a genius, I'm struck by how it challenges us to think differently about intelligence. It's not just about IQ scores or academic achievements.
It's about embracing lifelong learning, cultivating curiosity, and challenging ourselves to grow and expand our minds. It's about recognizing the diverse ways in which intelligence manifests and celebrating the unique potential that resides within each of us.
This book has taken us on an incredible journey, exploring the intricacies of the human brain, the power of our senses, the complexities of our emotions, and the boundless possibilities of the human spirit.
It's a reminder that genius is not a fixed trait, but rather a journey of discovery, a process of continual growth and exploration.
And that journey begins with a willingness to embrace the unknown, to ask questions, to challenge assumptions, and to never stop learning. So I encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of your own understanding. Who knows what incredible discoveries await you?
And remember, the journey toward unlocking your inner genius is a lifelong pursuit, filled with wonder, challenges, and endless possibilities.
Finally, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others. Your journey to core knowledge and better English starts here, so keep learning, growing, and staying curious. See you next time.